Well, happy second day of Hanukkah. Now, I know this isn't a Hanukkah uh, candelabra or whatever the official. Uh, I forget the name of the Hanukkah seven branched or eight branched candelabra is, but this is a classic menorah. Now, I'm only talking about this because it's kind of Hanukkah, and we were on lamps and stuff yesterday. Uh, anyway, this particular menorah, in a sense, is illustrative of the entire Hebrew alphabet. Now, the Hebrew alphabet is made up of 3 mother letters, okay, and then 7 double letters, and then 12 simple letters, so 22 in all. Now, the 3 mother letters are Aleph, Mem, and Shin, sort of like fire, water, and air. And these 3 double-branched arms there could represent the 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Now, Aleph explodes from an inscrutable center, and that center will eventually be attributed to the Hebrew letter Tav. And Tav would be represented by this black candle in the very, very middle. But before we get to that middle, we've got Aleph, Mem, and Shin on the branches there. And Aleph reaches from infinite height to infinite depth. And infinite height is attributed to Mercury, the sphere of Mercury in the Hebrew letter Bet. And infinite depth is attributed to, and this is a typo, that should be a Gimel instead of a Nun there, and the moon. So, infinite height over here for the Mercury in yellow, and infinite depth for the moon. And the second one, the second candelabra double branch thing, is east and west. And so that would be, east and west, would be the sphere of Venus, in the Hebrew letter Dot, and the west would be Kaf. So east, west. And then we've got north, south here. So now, do you see why they're double letters? Because they've created an environment of duality, up, down, right, left, front, back, up, down, north, south, east, west. And so those are double letters. So we've got, so far, we've got the 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, Shin, 7 double letters, with the candelabras, the candles themselves being opposite one another, just like a cube. Then the base of this cheap little menorah that I got off of the internet is 6-sided, and it's 2 levels of 6 sides, and it actually has the symbols of the 12 tribes of Israel, which happen to also be associated directly to the 12 signs of the zodiac, just like The 12 signs of the zodiac are on the 12 edges of the cube of space. Now, if we pop open the cube of space, I've got a funky little thing here where I've got that sphere of Saturn at the very, very center of the whole thing, and Aleph is that yellow one going up and down, and Mem is this blue one going north or east and west, and then Sheen, which is this red one that goes north and south. And that creates the up and down, right and left, north and south, and all of that. And those center in 6 directions, or those 6 directions form the edges of the cube. And just like the cube of space, the menorah shows all of that in its 7 branches. Okay. That has absolutely nothing to do with today's talk, but absolutely everything to do with everything. Why am I dressed up like that? Yeah, it's cold, but Constance and I, it's Tuesday, and we went to our shopping, our 2 major weekly shopping places. And the first one, I was getting all ready for class, and I was getting my phone ready, and I was going to, and then Constance comes out, and she has lost her purse with her wallet in it. And number one, I had to, pay for her shopping, which is my shopping. It's her money is mine, and my money is hers, and neither one of us deserve any of it. But anyway, so we needed to come home just to make sure that she didn't lose it someplace in the store. And sure enough, her purse was safely here at home. And by then it was almost 10 o'clock. She says, "Why don't you just do your show from here?" So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm still bundled up, because our car has no heater. Anyway, the Aeon of Osiris. The formula of the dying god. Now, yesterday we did the Aeon of Isis. The formula of the dying god, even though the formula of the dying god became crystallized in the religions and institutions of the astrological age of Pisces, the Aeon of Osiris dawned much earlier. The advent of agricultural societies necessitated a greater awareness of the cycles of the seasons. Osirian age farmers began to recognize the effects sunlight, or lack of it, had upon vegetation. They observed that at certain times of the year the days grew short and crops did not grow. It eventually became evident that even though the earth brought forth life, that's what they discovered in, or recognized in the age of Isis, even though the earth brought forth life, the supreme creative energy that vivified that life came from the sun. Coincidental with this discovery was a universal acknowledgement of the role men play in the procreative process. Just as plant life needed the warm, penetrating rays of sunlight to flourish, so too woman needed the introduction of the male sperm to avoid being forever barren. The heretofore unrecognized concept of fatherhood became a dominant theme. The Aeon of Osiris truly began when our forefathers raised their eyes to heaven and woke up to the fact that life on earth was a partnership of sun and earth. And the life of the race was a partnership of man and woman. However, the partnership was not perceived as being equal. And as we learned in our discussion of the astrological age of Taurus, the male backlash was severe and unmerciful. Deity was now male, a father, and his power was likened to that of the sun. Even though this shift of consciousness was the result of a more accurate assessment of the facts of life than was realized in the age of Isis, it was not quite accurate enough. A defect in the perception of cosmological facts plunged our Osirian age ancestors into a dark and terrifying insecurity. An insecurity crisis that traumatized the human race so severely that we are still suffering its effects. Particularly in Florida. This fundamental flaw in understanding caused us to switch our focus from the mystery of where life comes from to an obsession and an obsessive preoccupation with death. The tragic misunderstanding focused on the belief that each day the sun was born at dawn in the east and died every evening in the west. Speculations abounded where the dead sun went during the darkness of night, and if indeed a new one would ever appear again in the east. Perhaps it went to the land of the dead, where we temporarily visit during our nightly little death of sleep. The terrors and ecstasies of our dreams form the archetypes of heaven and hell. And after we die, who better to judge our worthiness for either place than the dead sun itself, who created and sustained us during our stay on earth? This is precisely the part the god Osiris would play in Egyptian mythology. And, Christ's role in Christianity. To further complicate these fears, the sun's yearly escapades caused even greater anxiety. Each year, at the zenith of the sun's power in summer, it was observed that each day it rose and set a little south of where it did the day before. I'm, of course, talking about northern hemisphere. Around harvest time, the days grew noticeably shorter, and the specter of the empty harvested fields accentuated the leafless trees and browning grasses and painted a melancholy and frightening portrait of nature in articulo mortis. It was unsettling enough to have the sun completely disappear each day. But if it continued to head south until night was perpetual, how long could the world survive in cold darkness before a new sun appears? In an attempt to calm the shattered nerves caused by such musings, a few wise souls took a deep breath and attempted to look at the big picture. Yes, the sun dies each evening in the west, but years of observation and the testimony of the oldest members of society indicated that no one could remember a time when another one didn't come up in the east within a relatively short time. Yes, the sun becomes weak and almost dies each year, but the same observations and testimony revealed that it eventually reverses its journey south, and the days grow longer and longer again until a new cycle of life returns to Earth. Based on the best information at their disposal, they concluded that magical power, an unknown and supernatural force, was responsible for the sun's resurrection. They further surmised that the secret of this magic must be hidden in the very nature of the sun itself. And if they could only harmonize with that nature, then perhaps they too could overcome death. Everywhere they looked in nature, they saw the sun cycle of birth, life, death, and resurrection. They saw that cycle reenacted. They observed that plants sprouted to the surface in spring and grew tall and strong in the long days and warm sunlight of summer. Then in autumn, at the height of their maturity, they put forth seeds and then died or were cut down at harvest time. Like the earth itself, the seeds lay dead and buried throughout the lifeless winter, only to spring to life when the rains and the lengthening rays of the sun transformed the soil into a moist, warm womb. They also observed the accelerated plant growth near the decaying remains of animals or people, and wherever large amounts of blood spilled upon the ground. This wonder was the male solar counterpart of the female lunar mystery of menstruation. The parallels between sun and phallus, sunlight and semen, the fertilizing power of semen had upon woman, and that blood had upon the earth, did not escape our Osirian ancestors' fertile imaginations. A new fact of life, one that conformed to the secret nature of the sun itself, became the magical formula of the Aeon. Life comes from death. In order to harmonize with this new formula, it became necessary to take an active role in the great death-life drama. For the earliest members of the Aeon of Osiris, human sacrifice was the supreme pantomime of the sun's daily and yearly sacrifice to the earth. It also illustrated the sacrifice of the potency of the phallus after ejaculation, and the seed's sacrificial death, burial, and resurrection. The spilling of human blood in the unsown or newly planted fields resulted in a noticeable increase in the fecundity of the harvest. The most comforting benefit derived from such bloody forms of religious expression was the undeniable fact that, as long as they continued the sacrifices, the sun always did come up in the morning and always stopped its journey south and returned to bring spring and summer. Don't mess with the good thing. As long as we're doing it, the sun keeps coming up. This puts a tremendous amount of power in the hands of the priests or priestesses who wielded the sacrificial knife. They positioned themselves between the people and the gods, and implied personal responsibility for the rebirth of the sun. With each dawn, they became demonstrably more powerful. At regular intervals, all over the world, ceremonial slaughter of the divine king assured a bountiful harvest and well-being of the people, even though the future victim was titular head of state. He was not a ruler in the modern sense. He was the living embodiment of the sun, and therefore supreme monarch of the earth. His periodic murder and the coronation of his successors were occasions of great solemnity. In the waning years of the Aeon of Osiris, the character of the sacrifice evolved from human blood to animal blood to bread and wine. Among the more mystically inclined, sacrifice became a personal, transcendent experience. Nevertheless, such changes did nothing to disturb the basic magical formula of the Aeon of Osiris. The cycle of birth, life, death, and resurrection remained the dominant theme right up to the time of the magical revival of the late 19th century. By this time, however, the old formula was no longer based on misinformation. It was based on denial. And tomorrow, we'll talk about the Aeon of Horus. And until tomorrow, continue to enjoy the 8 crazy days of Hanukkah. Isn't it funny that everybody's festival always have a festival of light around the time of the winter solstice? It's not odd. It's just the human thing to do. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.